Thank you, Gemini Brett. Welcome to the last presentation of this day. A lot of thoughts and many conversations, but Gemini will not allow you to fall asleep. He's going to bring amazing insights and slides to stimulate more interest in study. So Gemini, terrestrial translations of the celestial conversations expressed through the ancient arts of sacred geometry, musical harmony, embodied astronomy, and number magic, activate seasoned sages as much as they initiate students new to the cosmic curriculum. He's a world-renowned astrologer, shamanic storyteller, and inspiring educator, best known for his devotion to reconnecting astrologers with the sacred astronomy of the living sky. Brett's passion, dedication, and innovation were recently honored by OPA, who presented him in 2020 with the Orion Award for outstanding contribution to astrology. And I want to add a note to that because one of the great contribution of Gemini Brett is indeed to reconnect astrologers to the stars, to the sky, and not just to the computer and the printed chart. So that's a welcome gesture, and many other astrologers are following this. The Shamanic School of Astrology, Gary Caton. There are several astrologers who do that, but what the special contribution that Gemini Brett made to the world of astrology is to re-examine the notion that the zodiac is seasonal, since Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra open the solstice and the equinox, the seasonal milestone. But these seasons are different in the southern hemisphere. So this theory of seasonal astrology has its discrepancies. And Gemini is proposing another model that speaks about astrology being directional, and that these angular axes, the Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, are not only about seasons, but they're about east, west, south, and north on the earth as in the heavens. So I invite you to explore that with him. But today our talk is about the discrepancies between the signs and constellations, and exploring also the whole paradigm and conspiracy about the 13 signs. So I'll leave it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. It is so wonderful to be with you once again, and I can't wait to actually be with you again in Tucson, coming very soon. I hope everyone who is able to listen live here online is considering coming to the in-person event where we can be together under the same stars of the sky at the same time. I'm very much looking forward to showing those of you who are there how to see the midheaven and space with your face at night, and very much looking forward to having ceremony and celebrating Venus and Jupiter together. Right. I want to make a distinction between shaman and shamanic storyteller. All right. And good enough. Let's dive in here. I am the latter and not the former. And I am of the school of Earth astrology in many ways. I added this slide along the way of these wonderful presentations today. There's an interesting thing that was just asked, that one of the ways that twins are addressed are looking at these different degrees of ascendance, perhaps, Sabian symbols or older images like bounds and terms and those kinds of things. These images, I'm sure all of you astrologers are familiar with, the triangles and hexagons and squares and poles of the signs. But I wanted to add this from my school because not just to show 12th parts and decans and bounds. I mean, that's in the tradition of our craft, but this image on the left, very different than traditional. So in the Hellenistic era, which you can see in the lower left, the ram constellation was aligned to the tropical sign of Aries. In our day and age, it's not the ram, it's the fishes. And we heard wonderful astrologers talking about, wouldn't it be nice if we learned that at the beginning? So that's part of the golden year in my school of astrology. And to ask a question that I was invited to ask in the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School, where I started my study, which was, how much does a constellation inform a time, a sign during a specific age? Which is a wonderful question. What is the fish's version of tropical Aries versus the ram version? So you'll see that I use terms like fishes and ram to talk about constellations and Aries to talk about signs, because my friends, they are very different things. And we've known this maybe since the beginning. At the very end of this presentation, I will make a claim that I guess goes against the accepted history of our craft. But I think you received a history lesson yesterday that shows us that much of our history of this magical craft is very obscured. So what is fishes, Aries? And this isn't the presentation to address that question, but I encourage you to. And I would say that I feel, of course, it is very important to differentiate signs and constellations, especially, but not only if you're working with the tropical zodiac, which means also that if you're talking Aries, maybe less images of the ram, especially the stars of this ram constellation, which, by the way, don't look anything like a ram. Have you ever considered that? Have you ever considered how the Pisces glyph actually looks a lot more like, the Pisces constellation, the fishes, look a lot more like an Aries glyph? Maybe we'll get to explore that a little bit today here in this presentation. So I'm very happy to have been invited here by OPA once again. I've been working with OPA and teaching astronomy for astrologers for OPA as part of their certification since 2018, and very excited to teach another round, another orbit this year of 2022. We will do 6 Saturdays, 3 in June, 3 in July. opaastrology.org to find out more about that. If you have taken astronomy for astrologers with me before, you know I like to call it sacred astronomy. You'll also have seen many of these images before, and you'll have also heard me say before that redundancy is built into every great space mission. I learned that from NASA. That might be the only astrology I learned from NASA. All right. So this is astrology false because constellations and signs are not aligned? Okay, wait a second. I'm also teaching a presentation on presentations in a couple weeks, part of the online event here. And one of the keys is come up with a good title, friends. So that's an interesting title. It brings us in because it's something we're challenged with as astrologers by rationalists in our day and age and folks who haven't investigated the astronomy of the tropical zodiac before, many who seem to refuse to, even though they're astronomers, which befuddles me. But anyway, what about this title? How about solving the 13th sign crime? Yeah, cool. That's the one. Let's journey in. So, astrology is the poetic breath of nature. I feel astrology is so much more than some symbolic language alone, in that when we renature our astrology, we will remember the roots of the rules and the proofs of the astrological equations we use. It's important for us to learn astronomy as astrologers, not only to defend ourselves against the rationalist attacks, but literally to preserve tropical astronomy, which is kind of being left behind by the cats who drop giant telescopes on sacred mountains and extend their gaze to tiny parts of space long ago and far away to engage with the cosmos. And we are receiving many beautiful teachings and new questions from the astronomers of our day. I'm not trying to hate, but it's hard to relate to those who won't also lay on the grass and widen the gaze and take in all of the sky at once. You know, that's part of what we do as astrologers. Or it's one thing that I'm really encouraging astrologers to remember to do, but really we see so much of the sky, even the sky below the ground, with the gifts of our charts. Our charts, horoscopes. Now, horoscopos is Greek for hour marker. That's the ascendant, all right? But we also know that horoscope can be used to describe any chart of the sky. And I wish that the astronomers would get into the charts. They do such an elegant job of showing us the sky from a given place in a given moment. The astronomers, of course, think we're not really about the cosmos. They think we and astrology itself can be found in, the pages of magazines like Cosmo. And that's a dangerous thing because what we read about astrology in places like that are articles like this, 13 signs. Oh, wait a second. I meant to show this one. Sorry. Cosmopolitan, September 16th, 2016. People are panicking because there's a 13th zodiac sign. Everything you've ever known is a lie, etc., etc. NASA's January, yet for some reason now viral, announcement there has been an ignored 13th constellation in the Zodiac all along has the internet panicking. With the addition of this constellation into the 12 ones we've always known, there is a shift in the calendar between Scorpio and Sagittarius, altering people's signs depending on who you talk to. While many don't trust NASA's report, this is people questioning knowledge they've based their entire lives on. The sky is blue, the grass is green. Leos, or whatever you are that's not as good as a Leo, are inherently better than other people. This constellation named Ophiuchus, NASA reports, was conveniently ignored by the Babylonians when they made their zodiac calendar more than 3,000 years ago. They'd been operating on a moon-based calendar that correlated perfectly with the 12 constellations of the zodiac. But even then, some of the chosen 12 didn't fit neatly into their assigned slice of the pie and slopped over into the next one. A quote. So they picked Ophiuchus and left it out. I mean, this is confusing. It's also really bad astronomy. They must be quoting some, odd source. Oh, no, they're quoting NASA, who knows everything about astronomy, right? And therefore, of course, everything about astrology. Now, the URL at the bottom of the page will no longer work. It will not get you to this same page. I wonder if that's because astrology has won. But the Wayback Machine, hopefully you know about Internet Archives, can bring us to many editions of this page. This is images you will see from the last posting of this article, which was on December 26th, 2020, not so long ago. Space Place. This is NASA's educational place for children. Let's zoom in here a bit. And I guess we'll start with this disclaimer, which showed up sometime in 2018, I think, before they took this article away altogether. Disclaimer, this material is being kept online for historical purposes. Though accurate at the time of publication, it is no longer being updated. The page may contain broken links or outdated information, and parts may not function in current web browsers. I will argue it was never accurate. And let me explain why. So, astrology is not science. Is that accurate? Well, I'm not here to debate that. But let's read. Astronomy is the scientific study of everything in outer space. What about the things you don't know about? Anyway, I'm an astronomer too. Astronomers and other scientists know that stars many light years away have no effect on the ordinary activities of humans on Earth. Okay. Astrology is something else. It's not science. No one has shown that astrology can be used to predict the future or describe what people are like based only on their birth date. Still, like reading fantasy stories, many people enjoy reading their astrological forecast or horoscope in the newspaper every day. So this is how our children are being educated by the great guardians of all things space, NASA. Kind of scary, right? Well, I direct your gaze to this column here on the right, Leo Shmeo, where Mimi declares, I'm a Leo, and she's told quickly, no, I'm the Leo. I guess there can only be one. What is that argument about? Well, some people believe, or make believe, that the current sign of the zodiac affects how things go in their everyday lives, depending on the sign of their birth. This idea is called astrology, and people who claim to use the signs of the zodiac to make predictions are called astrologers. Okay, so are astrologers only people who use the signs of the zodiac to make predictions? It's a good question, but more importantly, look at that sentence before. The idea is called astrology. What idea? The idea is that the current sign of the zodiac affects how things go in their everyday lives depending on the sign of their birth. Okay, that's an idea called the transiting sun to the natal sun. So that's pretty limited astrology right there. But I guess that's astrology. We do a few more things. Oh my gosh, if NASA knew the techniques that I use, could you imagine the ridicule? Could you imagine what they would say about secondary progressions or solar arc directions, circumambulations? Anyway, let's get back to this. Mimi's birthday is August 4th. When she says, I'm a Leo, she means that on her birthday, the imaginary line from Earth through the sun and out into space on the other side of the sun points to the constellation Leo. The trouble is, it doesn't. Read this article and find out why. Well, we better, because that imaginary line thing is a little confusing. So let's bring that into clarity. We scroll down the page a bit. Constellations and their symbols. Some curious symbols ring the outside of the star finder, which is the wheel you see down there. These symbols stand for some of the constellations in the zodiac. What is the zodiac and what is special about these constellations? Imagine a straight line drawn from Earth through the sun and out into space way beyond our solar system where the stars are. Then picture Earth following its orbit around the sun. This imaginary line would rotate, pointing to different stars throughout one complete trip around the sun or 1 year. All the stars that lie close to the imaginary flat disk swept out by this imaginary line are said to be in the zodiac. The constellations in the zodiac are simply the constellations that this imaginary straight line points to in its year-long journey. All right, you got to be a pretty smart kid to follow that language, I would say. I want to bring in an animation that will help. Plus, I'm talking to a very educated crowd of adults, I believe. I want to make a correction. I think what I said about the star finder, that it was this wheel shown down below, is wrong. That's a link to something else where they show how to find different constellations in the sky. Awesome. I'm one of those star finders too. Okay, so we begin here with the Earth in her orbital path and an imaginary line pointing through the sun to some stars way out in space way beyond the sun on the other side. And of course, because it's an arrow, I'll start by pointing it to Sagittarius. Why not? And then, of course, as the Earth orbits, about once per month, the sun is found moving through the signs of Capricorn and Aquarius and Pisces and Aries and Taurus, then to Gemini, you know this, Cancer, then to Leo, then to Virgo, you all know this, then to Libra, then to Scorpio, then to Ophiuchus? Wait, what? Okay, well, we're going to have to learn about Ophiuchus in this bit called A Long History of Looking to the Stars. And it's actually on the next page, but I think we better address this first. This is what NASA's teaching the kids. In ancient times, astronomers did not fully understand how Earth, the sun, and the stars moved, nor did they have any idea the universe is so vast. But they were keen observers of the sky and tried very hard to make sense of it. People had already imagined that the constellations might be important symbols, telling stories of their gods and other myths. It was not a big step to suppose that the changing positions of the constellations at different times of the year might be important to people and events on Earth. Yeah, might be important to these, archaic ancient time astronomy people projecting their gods and symbols and, or to people who like things like food, right? Because if you don't have a calendar, friends, how are you going to know when to plant and harvest or when to migrate to find that herd that yours depends upon, or perhaps the berries on the trees that only show at a certain time of year? And yes, we can experience the changing of the seasons. This is different depending on where we are on the Earth, right? But why does that happen? And if we want to get more precise, we either need to keep the days, right? I guess that looks like, stick marks on a bone. We do have phases of the moon on bone going back at least 30,000 years. Phases of the moon. Or it might look like watching the sun move through the constellations. What happens when the sun gets here? First of all, how do you know? And I think a very important thing for us to learn is that when we go outside, let's say it's this time where now the imaginary line from Earth is pointing through the sun to Capricorn. What do you see? The sun, right? The one star that will blind you if you try to look beyond that light. So how do we know that the sun is in the sign of Capricorn? But there are many ways that we can experience this on Earth. For one, no matter whether you live north or south of Earth's equator, Capricorn sun will rise furthest south of due east and set furthest south of due west. Now in the northern hemisphere, that means a significantly short day, the shortest day of the year. In the southern hemisphere, the longest. I mean, there's places actually extreme southern hemisphere, like south of the Tropic of Capricorn. Wait a second, Tropic of Capricorn? Anyway, way down there where the sun will never set at that time of the year. In places north of the Tropic of Cancer, wait, Tropic of Cancer? That sounds like astrology. I'm sorry, there's places north of the Tropic of Cancer where that Capricorn sun will never rise. So a lot of this depends on where you stand on the Earth, but regardless, if you are within the Arctics, I just said, sorry, south of the Tropic of Capricorn, north of the Tropic of Cancer. That was wrong. I guess we should learn from our mistakes. I meant south of the Antarctic Circle or north of the Arctic Circle. I'm too excited to get to my punchlines, I guess. South of the Antarctic Circle, the December solstice sun will never set. North of the Arctic Circle, the December solstice sun will never rise. But if you're between the Arctics, then yes, you will see the sunrise. And No matter where you are, you will see the sun rise furthest south of east and set furthest south of west. The sun only rises due east and sets due west 2 times a year. What are they? All right, I digress. Here, why point to Capricorn now? Well, because just look to the signs at the top. Capricorn is number 1. Why? Why would NASA put Capricorn first? January 1st, right? Hey, NASA, where's your 13th sign? Like, I love they squeeze Ophiuchus into the ring down there, but they didn't put it up top. And all those ones up top are evenly spaced. Interesting. Oh, I'm going to put Capricorn 10th and Aries first. Why? Because this article speaks about the Babylonians. And their year began, from what I understand, at the March equinox, which wasn't called March back then. In ancient times, astronomers did not fully understand how Earth, the sun, and the stars moved. Okay, we heard that already, but there's something said in that that's like, oh, we do now. It's preposterous. Let's skip down to the 3rd paragraph here. The Babylonians lived over 3,000 years ago. They divided the zodiac into 12 equal parts, like cutting a pizza into 12 equal slices. They picked 12 constellations in the zodiac, one for each of the 12 slices. So as Earth orbits the sun would appear to pass through each of the 12 parts of the zodiac. Since the Babylonians already had a 12-month calendar based on the phases of the moon, each month got a slice of the zodiac all to itself. Okay, so you can hear the pizza slice information that Cosmo was quoting from. But if you have a solely lunar calendar based upon the lunar phases, NASA, you should know that's not a year, right? That's like 354 days. I mean, I guess we don't need to have all of this information as this is a space place for kids. We shouldn't have to show our resources either. Where's this information coming from about Babylonian pizza? All right, anyway, let's continue. Here's this last paragraph on this page. But even according to the Babylonians' own ancient stories, there were 13 constellations in the zodiac. Other cultures and traditions have recognized as many as 24 constellations in the zodiac. So the Babylonians picked one, Ophiuchus, to leave out. Even then, some of the chosen 12 didn't fit neatly into their assigned slice of the pie and slopped over into the next one. Okay, when the Babylonians first invented the 12 signs of zodiac, a birthday between about July 23rd and August 22nd meant being born under the constellation Leo. Now, 3,000 years later, the sky has shifted because Earth's axis, the North Pole, doesn't point in quite the same direction. Now, Mimi's August 4th birthday would mean she was born under the sign of Cancer, one constellation earlier, not Leo. So interesting to see born under the sign of those quotes, right? Because we know that's an astrology term. How is it used? If you go way back when, do you think that was used about being born under the sign that hosted the sun at the time of your birth? Maybe the ascendant? Regardless, we know what NASA feels this means. And they're telling us that Mimi on August 4th is not a Leo. She's Cancer because the sun was in the constellation of Cancer, we can see here, right? I mean, I think very importantly, this article reveals, at least with this author, there's no name, believes astrology and tropical astrology is. And I think you will probably disagree, whether you're practicing with the tropical or sidereal zodiac, or maybe even a constellational zodiac, you'll probably disagree with their beliefs about what astrology is and what astrologers do. So let's get back to the Leo Shmeo bit. Mimi's birthday is August 4th. Right? So when she says I'm a Leo, she means that on her birthday, the imaginary line from Earth through the sun and out into space on the other side of the sun points to the constellation Leo. The trouble is it doesn't. All right, well, here's Mimi's birth chart. It took me a while to find the right person at NASA to get the birth data. 12:30 p.m., August 4th, 2012, believe it or not, Tucson, Arizona. Actually, I'm not sure about that. I just saw August 4th, and I assume that Mimi was born in modern times, hence the nature of this article that's first, I guess, revealing this 13th sign crime. So I chose 2012, and I wanted to put the sun up at the top of the sky, and I want to go to Tucson. Oh, you know what? I'm going. Are you? Okay, so let's say Mimi was born in Tucson, Arizona on August 4th, 2012, 12:30 p.m., under the sign of Leo. This is why she says, I'm a Leo, right? The imaginary line from Earth through the sun is pointing to the constellation Leo way out in space on the other side. The problem is it doesn't, says NASA. Well, Stellarium astronomy software can help. They often help. What constellation is the sun aligned to? Trats. Well, you know what? The software, like our charts, can let us see more of the sky than we can by day. We can dim the atmosphere away. And let me make this chart a little bit smaller. Very importantly, I hope you can see that the chart is not only a map of the soul, and that shouldn't ever come with only. It's a map of the sky, folks. It even maps the sky that's down below, which is an amazing truth. And we can work with our charts just going outside to help us see which of these lights are moving. So Stellarium will let me reveal names here, I guess, and we'll bring in these planetary names, the planetas, the moving stars, the wanderers, right? Okay, so if you know your constellations, which constellation is the sun in there? You know, it's a very hard one to see, even when the sun is on the other side of the zodiac. That's the crab, although they could have chosen an earlier date to better make this case, I guess. But either way, clearly So let's ask Stellarium astronomy software to bring in some beautiful art here to help us see which of these star groups are which. And indeed, we find that NASA did not lie. Mimi was born under the sign of Cancer. I mean, that is, if you believe that term describes which constellation in the sky hosts the sun in the moment of your birth. I mean, hopefully you can see that on August 4th, 2012, this would be the same truth in 2022 or 2000. I'm not sure exactly how old Mimi is now, but the sun would be held right there in the crab's claw and nowhere near the lion, or certainly not enough to declare herself Leo. Sorry, Mimi. But maybe there's more to this story. We hear from NASA, and I think this might be the most important paragraph here. This is a very common claim that you will hear as astrologers when the rationalists stake their claim of why your craft is fake. So the constellations are different sizes and shapes. So the sun spends different lengths of time lined up with each one. The line from Earth through the sun points to Virgo for 45 days, but it points to Scorpius for only 7 days. What? 7 days? To make a tidy match with their 12-month calendar, the Babylonians ignored the fact that the sun actually moves through 13 constellations, not 12. Then they assigned each of those 12 constellations equal amounts of time besides the 12 familiar constellations of the zodiac, the sun is also aligned with Ophiuchus for about 18 days each year. Okay, 13 signs on the wheel. Let's investigate. Can you see what you're looking at here, friends? How well do you know the sky? I'm going to move my camera a little bit. It's actually part of my presentation is be careful not to work with things in the upper right corner if you're teaching online these days. Anyway, hopefully you can see this star here encircled. That is the very bright Arcturus, the fourth brightest star in the sky. Over here towards, well, the left, and I'm looking south, so that's the east, is Altair of Aquila, the eagle, the 12th brightest star in the sky. And here, the 15th brightest star in the sky, sometimes the 14th for its variable. And this is Antares, the heart of the snake. Wait, what? Oh, the heart of the scorpion. Although, you know, some saw that as a serpent. I've seen it drawn as a mammal on some petroglyphs here in Utah and also in California, actually. Scorpion, the heart of the scorpion, the royal star Antares. And look, I wouldn't expect NASA or the International Astronomical Union, who we will find is actually the original culprit of the 13th sign crime, to honor the tradition of royal stars. But what about the 15th brightest star in the sky? And if you've connected with Antares with your naked eye, you know this star is a light show, a very powerful being. All right, well, this is a very important place of space. Guess why? And I think you're looking at it. Let's bring in the art that can bring some clarity if you're not familiar with the constellations as they are seen, at least in the Greco-Roman tradition. Like, who gets to connect the dots? You know, these dots here in Stellarium, they're connected differently than they used to as well. You know, the scales that you might call Libra, and I prefer to say scales because constellations and signs are different things, but the scales were once seen held by the scorpion and were known as the claws. Actually, the brightest two stars, Zubin-el Janubi, great star name, and Zubin-el Shimali mean southern and northern claw, respectively. Anyway, the scorpion zone, and if we follow that scorpion's tail, we find our way to a very important place in space. The astronomers of our day and age call it Sagittarius A star, and it's said to be a supermassive black hole at the center of our Milky Way galaxy. Now, there are two glyphs that we use to depict signs in our day and age that have arrows on them. And the constellations that they were traditionally aligned with have arrows too, the arrow of the centaur or the arrow of the archer and the stinger of the scorpion. So I have to rearrange them a little bit to show you how those constellational arrows point in the sky. And they are pointing right to the galactic center. Do you think the ancients knew a little bit more than they are given credit for? There's a third constellation in this zone where the cosmic serpent, which is the Milky Way, bites its own tail, the Ouroboros snake, called Ophiuchus, who stands on galactic center. And this has long been known that these three constellations bring our gaze to someplace very important. This is a page from the wonderful book called Galactic Alignment by John Major Junkins. As far as I'm concerned, it is a must. Please read that book. It's amazing. Page 111, The Galactic Mysteries of Mithraism. So we're going to find our way to Garofsa here. I'm going to move that circle in the center from galactic center to a star of Ophiuchus that is closest to it. Garofsa, a relatively bright star. Learned magnitude. It's a really interesting logarithmic scale, and the lower the number, the brighter the star. Okay, so we have a magnitude of 3.25 and an ecliptic longitude of 261.40. I'm going to call that 262. What does that mean? Well, how about 22 tropical Scorpio? So maybe that speaks. Sorry, 22 tropical Sagittarius would be 262 degrees of longitude. That's a measurement that astronomers of our day and age still use. That's called ecliptic longitude. Where is it measured from, I wonder? Well, let's get back to that. So Garafsa is closer to the ecliptic. Okay, that's that yellow curve you see here in Stellarium. What is the ecliptic? It is the orbital path described by Earth in our annual dance about the light, about the sun. From Earth's point of view, we see the ecliptic as the sun moving about us, the apparent path of the sun through the sky, and for the most part, the path of the planets as well, because our solar system is relatively flat. I mean, I hope you can say that for very generally speaking. But so the ecliptic is the heart of the zodiac, the heart of the zodiac plane. And yes, Garafsa of this great constellation, Ophiuchus, is closer to the ecliptic than it's only 2 degrees away. That's a measurement called latitude, 2 degrees south of the ecliptic plane, actually. Closer than a much brighter star, Shaula. It's actually 2 stars in the Scorpion Stinger, Shaula and Lasath. And Shaula has a magnitude of 1.6. It's a very bright star, a piercing, stinging star, you might even say. Beautiful blue star. But it's much further from the ecliptic. Right here we see it is about 25 degrees tropical Sagittarius. 270 degrees is where tropical Capricorn begins. That's the Capricorn solstice, the Tropic of Capricorn. But here we see Shaula is about 14 degrees south of the ecliptic plane. And in the northern hemisphere sky, that renders Shaula very difficult to see. It's a better measurement for that, which is declination. Shaula's 37 degrees south declination, so south of the celestial equator, which I'll bring back in a little bit. It's interesting, I woke up this morning excited to work on some slides, and I went outside, and as I do, I went to the corner of the bricks in the patio because they are due north of this tree. So if you've taken astronomy with me, you know this is my midheaven tree because I show it all the time of how to find the midheaven in the sky. So I was out doing my thing and I was like, oh, wait a second. These are like literally the slides I put together for this presentation. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here and oh, my camera is covering. So you might have to close the camera. But on the right side, that is Arcturus, Altair on the left, and here is Antares down near the top of the tree, okay? So these, of course, are the same 3 that we highlighted before. I'm going to zoom in a bit and actually use a much faster lens to show you what I was working with. As I was trying to see what was culminating at this time so I could cast a chart, not with the computer, but with my eyes, with my face, just by looking at space. So I can see here Antares, which in our day and age projects to about 10 degrees tropical Sagittarius, was already to the west of my midheaven tree, meaning it's in the 9th house on the way down. This is Shaula, I believe. The camera gets more stars than my eyes do. And actually makes this one up here look pretty bright. This is one of the stars of Ophiuchus. Now, Ophiuchus, for very practical reasons, when you're out working with the sky, whether naked eye or with a telescope. So astronomers in our day and age who reside in the northern hemisphere, who have this problem of having difficulty seeing the scorpion, sometimes will work with the eagle stars. So why the eagle and the scorpion are long related. But Ophiuchus as well, wonderful stars. Like that star, if I know where it resides in the tropical zodiac, will help me cast a chart. Or a sidereal zodiac, if you prefer. So that star is called Omicron Serpens, right? These days, Ophiuchus is shown holding the serpent always was, but once they were the same constellation, now the serpent's cut in half and is right. When did that happen? Basically in 1929, which is the same time when the 13th sign crime was initially committed. All right, I better hurry up. So Omicron Serpents, very not bright star, magnitude of 4.2, resides only 13 degrees south of Earth's equator, so much higher in the northern hemisphere sky. Lives at 25 degrees tropical Sagittarius. And indeed, when I cast the chart for that moment in time, there you go, 26 degrees Sagittarius on high, because Omicron Serpents was on my midheaven tree and just a tiny bit to the right. Now, I didn't know the degree of that star before. I'm not too familiar with it because it's really not bright. And it's not so close to the ecliptic either, about 10.5 degrees away. So the further a star is from the ecliptic, the more difficult it is to work with by its longitude. On the right of the screen, you can see the very bright Arcturus, which today resides at 24 tropical Libra. Well, so does Spica, which is down below the ecliptic there, kind of by itself. So Spica is a much better star to work with if you want to actually see the zodiac in space with your face. Now, this is the zone of the zodiac we want to be tuning into over here. You can see Antares just below the royal star. But we're going to start looking at this star above, which is called Psyche, or maybe Psyche. Interesting. Bright star, 2.5 magnitude. Definitely naked eye visible, even in places with light pollution like California, where I live. Lives about at 10 degrees, 9.5 degrees, tropical Sagittarius. Is 11.5 degrees north of the ecliptic plane, celestial latitude. Whereas this bright star just below this circle on the screen is Antares. Magnitude 1. Crazy, super bright, 15th brightest star in the sky. Also 10 degrees tropical Sagittarius in our day and age. This changes with precession. And only 4.5 degrees from the ecliptic plane. Much brighter, much brighter. Actually more than 2.5 times brighter. That's not a linear scale magnitude. Lives almost 3 times closer. We can say more than twice. Well, we can say that Psyche is more than twice as far from the ecliptic. Okay. So what? Well, these blue lines here are the boundary divisions of the constellations as defined by the International Astronomical Union in 1929 and improved in 1930 in a secret meeting in Paris around a smoky table. Well, actually, I don't know that the meeting was secret in any way, but this is where this 13th sign thing comes from. All right, let's go to the dates, which I found in Cosmo, this wonderful astrology authoritative source. The new Libra, thanks to NASA. Oh, I'm just going to have to put that there. That's opinion, though. Sorry. According to NASA, this is Libra. Because actually, according to the astronomical, the IAU, the International Astronomical Union, this is where the Libra boundaries are of constellation Libra, okay? And the sun travels through that place October 30th to November 22nd. On November 23rd, the sun every year begins its brave week-long journey through Scorpio, which the IAU assigns only that little bit in red of the ecliptic to. What? How is that happening? Find stars in Ophiuchus that are closer or brighter. Now, again, if you're working with the telescope outside from the northern hemisphere, so this is a very hemispheric crime, it is difficult to see Scorpius sometimes, especially when you're far north of the equator, like, I don't know, Paris, London, the Royal Academy. The southern hemisphere, the Scorpion's much more visible than Ophiuchus, actually. And the Scorpion stars are not so far away. I mean, but I wanted to show you this first and foremost, just to educate you in a way that you can arm yourself against the 13th sign attack, right? Like, how is Antares not on the ecliptic plane according to these boundary divisions? It's right there and so bright. All right, let's speed up a bit. So there's constellational Ophiuchus according to the IAU and Cosmo. And here is constellational Sagittarius. So some people are working with this uneven 13th sign zodiac. I imagine some are having some success. I don't know. It feels really devoid of our sister sciences, which are sacred geometry and musical harmony and number magic as well. This is the place of space that I highlight now that we want to tune into to learn about what the tropical zodiac actually is. It's not about boundaries. It's not even about constellations. It's not even about the Milky Way galaxy. Although let's bring that back because it's a very important truth that this, what I am circling, is aligned to the Milky Way. Now, very likely what the Maya long count calendar was tuned to, and many sacred texts from around the world. Please read Galactic Alignment by John Major Jenkins. Amazing text. But it's not about the Milky Way. What is it? This is the ecliptic plane, and what I have circled is the place where the ecliptic most diverges from the celestial equator, south. In that place of greatest southern divergence or declination of the ecliptic, and therefore the path of the sun in our sky, is called, eyes to the blinking dot, 0 degrees tropical Capricorn. And thanks to the fine folks at Stellarium astronomy software that actually use that Capricorn glyph to depict the solstice point, the Tropic of Capricorn, and the equinox points. Wait, the tropic lives in the sky? This is not about constellations, friends. In fact, the tropical zodiac, it's not about any star other than our own. And I'm not trying to imply that the so-called fixed stars do not participate with our energetic experience on Earth. I'm a big star cat and constellation cat too. I love Ophiuchus, by the way, but not a sign. And the tropical signs are not about any star other than the one we call the sun. Leo Shmeo, NASA, I'm not so sure. So Mimi says, I'm a Leo, and we hear, no, I'm the Leo. Let's take this conversation a little bit further, because maybe we'll face a conversation just like this sometime. Say, hey, I'm a tropical Leo. Huh? Were you born in Hawaii? No, I was born in Tucson. That's not tropical, Mimi. Oh, I can see why that was confusing. You're the one who was confused, Mimi. The sun was in tropical Leo when I was born. That'll clear it up, right? What the heck is tropical Leo? It is a 30-degree division of the ecliptic plane. What the heck is tropical Leo, right? So the constellations are not equal in size. Get that 30-degree division thing out of here, right? Tropical signs are not about constellations, friends. What are they about then? They're about the tropics. We're talking about the sky, not about the earth. And clearly not about apostrophes either. What? We're talking about the sky, not about earth? What do you mean the tropics? The tropics are about earth and sky. The tropical signs are about the earth tropics and the sky tropics. Sky tropics. Yes, like that Tropic of Capricorn right above our heads. That's Sagittarius, right? We bring in the constellations, and here are these ones who are fixated on the definition of the zodiac being the constellations that embrace the ecliptic plane don't get it. Why does Stellarium astronomy software have that Capricorn glyph there if it's clearly, well, maybe it's an Ophiuchus actually. Look at the constellations, it's at like the foot of Ophiuchus, the arrow of the archer. NASA's, or the IAU's dates, by the way, would put it in Sagittarius. That's Sagittarius. So this is the right response. Where is the Tropic of Sagittarius on Earth? I'm so confused. It's all about the spine of Gaia. The what? The world tree. The what? Can I teach you some astronomy? I doubt it, but you can try. Now, this is the kind of cat I want to have a conversation with. And late night, I have talked to JPL and NASA scientists. One late night party at my friend Ursula Stockter's place in Mexico. I remember an orange in one hand and a straw poking out as the world tree and showing what the tropical zodiac astronomy was to the astronomer that said, oh, that's a thing. Then he let me look at the birth chart and I told him what he did for NASA. You guess, and maybe we can talk about it after. Capricorn rising. When was this cat born? Uranus and Neptune conjoined at the ascendant. Okay, what do you got? What did he do for NASA, right? So I looked at that, told him his job, and then he's like, whoa. Okay, let's talk. And then we talked astrology. Guy was a pretty good astrologer by the morning. Smart cookie. But had been told by the the teachers that astrology is just fake, so never had a look. I was like that for a long time. And probably didn't know that there's at least 3 zodiacs. So this is something we really dive deep into in the OPA Astronomy for Astrologers class. But I'm going to show you a bit right now. So one of these is pretty easy if you grew up on NASA or in science class, and it's the constellational zodiac. The yellow circle you see here is the ecliptic plane, and the constellational zodiac is simply the 12, not 13, the 12 constellations that embrace the ecliptic. And NASA is absolutely right. The constellation that I prefer to call Priestess describes like 47 degrees of ecliptic arc. I mean, more than 1.5 signs, while the mighty Ram is only like half a sign of ecliptic arc. The constellations vary significantly in size. That means whether you are practicing with a tropical zodiac or a sidereal zodiac, which we'll look at next, which both employ 12 equal divisions of the 360-degree ecliptic circle, meaning 12 30-degree signs. Whether you're working with tropical or sidereal, you cannot align your signs to the constellations of the zodiac because the ecliptic constellations vary significantly in size. But here we'll look at in purple, sidereal Sagittarius, at least according to one of the I am nonsenses, one of the sidereal zodiacs. 30 degrees, sidereal Scorpio, 30, sidereal Libra, 30, which has most of the scales, but a whole bunch of priestess feet. So I was born with the sun of the very first degree of tropical Scorpio. I'm sidereal Libra, but constellational priestess or Virgo. What am I? I just call himself Gemini, you know? Importantly, many of the popular sidereal zodiacs are really keyed in such a way that 0 Libra starts at or near that brightest star of the constellation the astronomers call Virgo. So if you have a sidereal astrologer is arguing the same case with you about tropical signs and constellations not aligning, neither do sidereal constellations or any 12-degree division of the zodiac, okay? So sidereal Libra starts with Alpha Virgo. Weird. Not as weird as this. That same star, Spica or Spica, Chitra, 24 degrees tropical Libra in our day and age. Right? And tropical Libra, here shown in blue with the Libra glyph, has no scales anywhere near it. right? The scales are aligned to tropical Scorpio. The scorpion is aligned to tropical Sagittarius. We're one sign off, friends, and it's gonna get worse. Let's move ahead thanks to the precession of the equinox, or the procession of the stars against the equinox points, to the dawning of the age of Capricorn, which is thousands of years away. But, then tropical Sagittarius, here highlighted, will equal sidereal Libra, right? And Sagittarius will be aligned to the scales and priestess feet. What? So are these rationalists right? Do we need to throw the tropical zodiac away? No, because it doesn't have anything to do with that. What is it, you ask? It is all about, my friends, Gaia's spine, the world tree, which has many lights. They're called the stars, and one very nifty star on top in our day and age called Polaris, the pole star, the North Pole star, because in our day and age, Earth's northern axis points to Polaris. Where does the south trunk, in this case of the tree as it is currently depicted on your screen, point to? Currently, there is no southern star, but in other times of the great year, the precessional year of about 26,000 Earth years, there are south stars, and there are not north stars. This is the truth of the tropical zodiac. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with any star other than ours, our own, the sun. This is a very specific time of year. What time is this? When the southern axis of the spine of Gaia, or the sword of our stone, as I poetically know Earth's rotational axis, is leaning towards the light. The trunk of the Christmas tree. Oh, it's Christmas time. Or just after, because it's December 21st on our current calendar when the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn. Why? Because the southern axis of Earth is leaning towards the light. And at that time, when the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, it shines directly above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn. So the sun at that time, according to NASA and Cosmo, and the IAU, is Sagittarius. Okay, well, why do you call that place 23.5 degrees south of Earth's equator the Tropic of Capricorn? It's called the Tropic of Capricorn, or the sign is called Capricorn, because when the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, it shines directly above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn only on that day. And then, sorry, this is a northern hemispheric thing to say, but the sun, like a goat, will then begin to climb the mountain for 6 months until it reaches its most northern point. Where do you fancy that might be? This, of course, tropical Capricorn ingress, December solstice, summer solstice for the southern hemisphere. You can see why, right? And winter solstice for the northern hemisphere. So let's look at winter, spring, summer, and fall. Here's winter solstice, sun literally directly above earthly locations on the Tropic of Capricorn at their zenith. About 3 months later, the sun now shining directly above Earth's equator. This is the time that we call the sun's tropical Aries ingress, March equinox. About 3 months later, now it's the northern axis of the world tree of Earth leaning towards the light, when the sun ingresses tropical Cancer and shines directly above Earth's Tropic of Cancer, although here not drawn right. Stop the animation at the wrong time. That looks like it's above the equator. That's my bad. All right. Let's move another 3 months, and now the sun once again will be directly overhead someplace on Earth's equator. This is equinox. This is sun ingress tropical Libra. And let's get back to where we began. And that line's drawn correctly at least. All right, so the sun ingressing tropical Capricorn, shining directly above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn. Hopefully you can see that. This is because Earth's axis of day, our daily rotation, is tilted in respect to our orbital path by an angle of about 23.5 degrees. So at solstice time, the sun shines about 23.5 degrees from Earth's equator at equinox time above the equinox points on Earth's equator. This is the northern axis. Earth is always leaning north. Yes, because of precession, it will point to a different star over the great year, but Earth north is Earth north, unless we're struck by a comet again or something. Like north on your street will be north on your street. If I walk from here north, I will get to Seattle because I live in Richmond, California, and then I'll get to Earth's North Pole if I got a good enough coat. North is north on Earth. And I'm not talking about magnetic north. I'm talking about true north, which is defined by Gaia's spine, the sword of our stone, Earth's rotational axis, which always leans north. And this is the reason for the seasons. This is the time when the sun is south of all of Earth. Okay. And we measure astrology from the center of Earth where we are all connected. Can you see how this is also south? The sun at this time is south of Earth's center. Why? Because Earth's lean. You get it? Well, now we're going to move a few months forward to Aries equinox, Aries ingress. And at this time, the Earth sees the sun aligned to what constellation? It's not about that. This is the most important thing about this time. The sun is due east of Earth. Now, that's kind of a tricky thing to say because while north is defined by Earth's lean and there is a pole and there's that for south too, where is east and west? Like east in California right now is pointing to a different place. I have a different rising sign than probably wherever you are listening if you're listening in the same moment of time. In a sense, east is only about the direction towards which Earth is spinning in our modern astronomical cosmology, okay? Like there is a north and a south. I mean, let's even think magnetically. Where's magnetic east? Oh, it's just square south and north, and in a particular, counterclockwise between south and north, okay? The same is true in this map. There is an east, there is a west from the one place we all connect, and that is the center of Earth. This is the key to the tropical zodiac. We can say it's seasonal. This is the reason for the seasons, but what are you going to do about the southern hemisphere? Right? People teach that the sun rules Leo because it's the hottest time of the year. Say that to someone in Brazil. And as you know, some astrologers are and have played with the idea of the southern hemisphere should have the tropical zodiac reversed so it can agree seasonally. Well, what are you going to do about London versus Hawaii? Seasons are very different in those two northern hemisphere locations. The directions work a little bit differently too. Energetically, in the northern versus the southern hemisphere, moving from one location to another. And that's a very important thing, I think, to tune into if you really want to tune into the roots of the tropical zodiac. But what I will tell you is that there's something in the tropical zodiac that lives beneath our feet. So the old cosmology, if it's coming to us from those stars so far away, I disagree with. And I believe the sidereal zodiac of the stars or a constellational zodiac of the constellations is about up there far away. Although truthfully, that's not accurate for constellations because they're only seen in that way from Earth, you know. Stars are celestial, constellations are terrestrial, and the tropical signs are maybe even subterranean. So another time, I'd love to tell you what I believe the tropical zodiac is and why I believe it is our craft in finding a mechanism for it, which I'm after. I'm not saying astrologers have to be. I think it's going to help us return to the free energy that the ancients were using, like the pyramid builders, but I'm weird like that. So many of us look at this as the beginning of the astronomical or the beginning of the astrological year, why the sun is due east of the center of Earth where we all connect. And east is a place of beginnings. Simply watch the sunrise every day to remember that. So this is an astronomical support for mundane astrology's use of the Aries ingress chart. For a chart of the year, depends on the rising sign, but many use it for the entire year. It's also an astronomical support for the so-called natural zodiac, where we take a whole sign chart and put 0 Aries, where we usually would put an ascendant. Why? Because That's literally east of the center of the Earth, and therefore it works like a global ascendant. And this is the key to the tropical zodiac. You can see the Earth there in the middle with the directions outlined. I think for the sake of time, I just want to skip down a bunch of pages here because this is something I think you'll want to see. This is the tropical zodiac astronomy now from a geocentric point of view. Okay, I have the Earth here oriented to her primary motion, which is our daily rotation, and it's that rotation about our, axis that defines the cardinal direction. So north and south, as it's shown here on the screen. The blue plane is Earth's equator projected into place. That's the plane of that daily rotation. It's called the celestial equator when we look at it in the sky. The rainbow colors here are color coded for the elements of the tropical signs of the zodiac. So we are looking at the time of sun, ingress, tropical, Aries, March equinox, right? Earth's point of view, seeing the sun east. Now what you see at the bottom is the solar serpent, the declination serpent. Declination is a measurement north or south of the celestial equator. Okay, so I'm showing in that red arrow someplace in like maybe 20 degrees tropical Taurus, which is a northern sign. But the sun at this time we can see is at the one of the two places that has a declination of 0, the equinox points, the crossing points. And this is certainly not that. So if you look at the solar serpent down there at the bottom of the screen, you'll see it's at the peak of northern declination. This is where the sun is most north, because it's where the zodiac is most north, because it's where the ecliptic is most north of Earth's celestial equator. This is a directional game. And at this time of year, and only at this time of year, Earth's North Pole leans to the light. Easier to see if we lean this so that the ecliptic is our orientation, which most of our globes do that we played with in school, right? Well, what they don't show us is that when the sun ingresses tropical Cancer at this time of year, why? Because the Earth in our orbit has its northern lean facing the light. When the sun ingresses tropical Cancer, it shines directly above the Tropic of Cancer. This is a game of world tree, friends. A world tree with many, many stars. One of those in our day and age, if you live in the Northern Hemisphere like I do, is so important. Polaris, we actually have a star on the top of the tree, our rotational axis in our day and age, which helps us get directions. And Cancer is that northern sign. It is the most northern degree of the tropical zodiac at the Tropic of Cancer, just as 0 degrees tropical Capricorn is at Earth's Tropic of Capricorn. But we can also put them up to the poles because Cancer is the north sign, Capricorn is the south sign, and we can fill the other cardinal signs in with the other cardinal directions as measured from the center of Earth. So from this time, the sun gets less north until it gets to equinox, due west, Libra glyph, looking like the setting sun. Why? Because that point is due west of the center of Earth. And now the sun moves south of Earth's equator into the southern signs, the most southern point being 0 degrees tropical Capricorn above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn, and like a goat coming back up. So the last bit we'll do here, and it's the right time, I guess, is this Aries ingress, where the sun passes over the equator from the south to the north, or we could say the sun is on the cross of the ecliptic and the equator. Easter celebrates this with bunny eggs, which is strange, but that reaches back to fertility and Ishtar and a Wester, goddess of the East. And you can hear it in the name, East. Because at this time and only at this one time, the sun is due east of the center of the Earth, where we all connect, the global ascendant. Do you know when the sun was on the cross, at least in the book? At Passover time, where blood of the ram was painted above the doors. so that the angel of death would pass these places during the night. Why ram's blood? What time of year is this? And there was a constellation once aligned to that portal of east, Earth East, called Aries, right? I prefer to say ram, but you know what? The ram doesn't look like the Aries glyph. This is the Aries glyph. When you look east, especially from the equator, stars that rise south of east head to the south, stars that rise north of east head to the north, and like the horns of a ram, they curl around to set behind you in the west. The fountain of youth. And back in the day, the ram constellation was aligned to that point where east, that represents the eastern motion of the ram horn rise of the sky. And I'm sure this is why we say Aries. So we have these crossing points, equinox points, these points that are most distant from the equator, 4 undeniable, very real astronomical points of the tropical zodiac. This is the astronomy of the tropical zodiac. Now, how we get from there to 12 signs is a bit of a different tale. We have an astronomical approximation, which is 12.37 lunations per year. But in the day, in the mystery schools, you wouldn't study number in time and space. That's astronomy. Without studying number in time, that's musical harmony, and studying number in space, that's geometry. And when you do, you can clearly feel into the truth that creation creates in 12s. So my School of Astrology, I'm teaching geometry and harmony and number magic too. You can find more about that at GeminiBrett.com. And Astronomy for Astrologers, the OPA certification course, presented next this June, 3 Saturdays, and July, 3 Saturdays. In July, we'll take 1 week off in between for some integration because it's a lot of information. But I hope you can see from this presentation that it's not just science class. We're going to dive into the mysteries together that will help us remember why the zodiac is actually a thing. So I did too much in a little amount of time, which we'll talk about why not to do that in my presentation coming up in a couple of weeks. I hope to see you there. For now, I'm open to hearing any questions you may have. And thank you so much for spending some time with me here and tolerating my unpredicted intermission as well.
Gratitude for an amazing presentation, beautiful graphics, and putting so many things in place for many of us. We won't have time for questions, but you can email Brett. You have your website.
Yeah, so GeminiBrett.com and the contact works, although I'm still trying to get caught up on email from a recent retreat. But come to Tucson and ask me in person, and more importantly, out under the stars at night. I'll be working probably every night. One night is on the schedule. And by the way, one of the kind of key ingredients of the tropical astronomy transmission in OPA's astronomy certification class I teach is showing you the different mysteries behind these sign glyphs. So I look forward to showing those to you sometime in there, because I really hope you are pursuing OPA certification. I am, though I'm taking some time. Thanks, Maurice. I appreciate having the opportunity to stop now so I can do it before I lose my voice too.
Yeah, well, you have many messages of gratitude and can't wait for Tucson. Brett can talk forever and I could listen forever. Looking forward, blah, blah, blah. So very encouraging and supportive, and everyone seems to be moved and inspired. So I will just remind everyone, it was a long day, a lot of information, and you have about 2 weeks to process. So we meet and skipping one weekend, and we are going to
Taking a break for Easter, right?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I keep getting Zoom messages.
I can see your screen as well.
So just, a heads up, we talked about this earlier. Many blessings.
See you in space.